As many of you know, I'm really interested in the issue of leadership in all of its forms. And several years ago, I read a compelling book called Take Command: Leadership Lessons from the Civil War. It was written by Tom Wheeler, who is, of course, now the chairman of the Federal Communications Commission. Tom Wheeler wrote, and I quote, "The battle is never over, and that it is the responsibility of each leader to keep his or her troops moving forward toward that next hill, to overcome the natural human desire to declare victory and rest on the laurels of the day." And he said, at the heart of leadership lies conviction in who you are and what you are about, and I believe that. And no one personifies this strong core, this heart of leadership, more than public media's leading American storyteller and filmmaker, who, through his films, reveals our American story in a way that connects us to our own courage and conviction, beyond past laurels, to the important present, and ultimately enables us as citizens to shape our future. He's been honored with 12 Emmy Awards, 2 Oscar nominations, the Lifetime Achievement Award from the Academy of Television Arts and Sciences, and he was also honored with the Jefferson Award, America's highest honor for public service by a private citizen. Through his films, which we all know so well and love, just a few I'm going to name right now: The Civil War, Jazz, The Dust Bowl, The National Parks, America's Best Idea, and the Central Park Five. He pulls us into the story and encourages us to think. Ken Burns connects us to who we are and guides us toward what we can be about. Please welcome one of America's best ideas, our very good friend, Ken Burns.
Thank you, thank you. This is a family gathering. We can save that, we can reserve that for the senator. You know, I thought she was terrific. As Maine goes, so goes the nation, as the late 19th century saying went. Thank you very much. I do sort of feel like that this is a bit of a family reunion, that we're back together again. All the people I know and love are here, from PBS to individual stations to CPB to APTS, all the people that I've known for so many, many years. And it feels like a tremendous reunion of a sort, a kind of homecoming. I also want to echo a little bit about what Pat said. Is we recently, last month, returned from the Television Critics Association meetings in Los Angeles. And what was so abundantly clear, as it has actually been for the last several meetings of the TCA, is that we are ascendant. They were so happy at the end of 3 weeks of looking at the dreck that passes for media in this country to finally arrive at public television and to suddenly have some content. It looked like they were people from one of those Survivor movies that have washed up finally on a lush desert island where there's sustenance. And that's what we've been about. But we're now in a pretty unique position insofar as we've weathered some recent storms, and I think we have, as Pat suggests, not just the satisfaction that we do a good job, but the important internal leadership that demands that we go forward and capitalize in every sense of the word on this momentum that we've achieved. And I'd hope to help you in whatever way I could. I was so impressed by the American Graduate idea. I think it's just an amazing program. In large measure, the reason why the dropout rate is so bad is that our media, every place else, convinces people that if they live in an all-consuming and thereby forgettable present, they are de-obligated from any connection to society, and therefore, why would you want to participate any further in this process? There are lots of other factors that go in, and we detail them all the time in public media, and I'm just very, very proud to be a part of that and very happy to be here. We're going to share with you, thanks to PBS and our corporate and foundation supporters and our Better Angels Society and the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a whole set of films over the rest of this decade that we're very excited to talk to you about. And, you know, we continue. One of them is the Roosevelts that will be this fall. And obviously at its heart is the great central question of American democracy. What is the role of government? What can a citizen expect from that government? What is the nature of leadership? All sorts of wonderful questions, but also because of the nature of these three people, personal things about where character is formed, what adversity has to do with character and shaping that leadership. What is heroism? How does one negotiate the difference between one's strengths and one's weaknesses? And sometimes that's not a negotiation, it's a war, particularly with the three people, Theodore Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt, that we focus on. And we do it also in this series from a kind of internal view. It's called, the subtitle is An Intimate History, which means that this project is an American Downton Abbey with two important virtues. The first being that it's true, and the second being that it's made in America. And I'm very much looking forward to sharing that with you. That discussion, that argument about the role of government has obviously played into our lives and our fortunes during the entire history of public television. And I would like to recall a story that I think you've heard from me and from Pat and from others before, but is really germane to the situation. I had the great good fortune to be invited by WETA to an event at the White House in 1987, and President Reagan was there, and I went up and got up the courage and went up and started talking to him and said I was a producer from PBS and I was working on a history of the Civil War, and his eyes just lit up and he started talking about his boyhood in Dixon, Illinois, and how each 4th of July the ever-dwindling numbers of the members of the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic, the veterans of the North, would parade down the city, and how much it meant to him. And then he said, well, where is this? I said, it's public television. Where did you get your money? And I said, well, I got a very large grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities and from the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, and it had been matched by a grant from General Motors. And he grabbed me by the lapel the way an aunt would do, with a kind of intimacy that sort of shocked me. And he said, that's exactly right, that's exactly right. It's government's responsibility to prime the pump, and then the public sector comes in. And they were talking about just the kinds of public-private ventures that we do, not only at the national level, but you do at the station level. And that brings me to what I want to talk about today. The only postscript to this is that I finished, and only in America, only in democracy, would a long-haired hippie filmmaker, look 12 years old, get to talk to the president for 10 minutes. This Arab sheik walked over and he says, he hands me his card and he says, what do you do? And I said, he's wondering who had the ear of the President of the United States for so long. And I said, I make documentary films. And he says, you must make a documentary for me. I said, okay. True story. We don't tell untrue stories at Florentine Films. That is a true story. I live in this tiny little town in New Hampshire. Senator Collins is almost right about getting the states right. Across the Connecticut River from where I live is another northern New England state, Vermont. And in the tiny town of Putney is a school called the Greenwood School. 10 years ago, they invited me to come and judge a competition. I went as a good neighbor. They, for the last 35 years, have asked their students to memorize and then publicly recite the Gettysburg Address. It's a daunting task for anybody in this room. Don't turn away. You're about to be asked to do the same thing. And there will be a place outside over in the, appropriately enough, the Roosevelt Room where you'll have a chance to record the Gettysburg Address. But these kids all have learning differences. They're dyslexic, they suffer from ADHD, other issues that have made their progress in school academically and socially, emotionally, incredibly challenged. And this school is often a place of last resort for these kids. They've been bullied and marginalized elsewhere. I wept like a baby and said, somebody ought to make a film about this. This is cinema verite, not the kind of stuff that I do. I kept coming back year after year, and finally, I just thought, you know, we just have to do it. And so what I wanted to share with you right now is a short teaser for this film. It will be broadcast on April 15th on PBS, and which is the only place I've been. And I kind of thought, listening to Senator Collins, you know, it's really clear I've had lots of opportunities, and there is not a month that goes by that somebody hasn't offered something to go someplace else. And since January of 1977, I have been tied to this notion and this ideal of public broadcasting. I like the public in it. There ought to be a role for this government at a federal, at a state, and a local level to be engaged in what people learn across the air, and that it ought to be involved in reaching out to people in all the ways we talk about, not just the superb primetime broadcasting schedule, but as Senator Collins detailed, homeland security, weather, crops, continuing education, classroom of the air, all of the things we do so well. So I'm so happy to be with you. Let's just watch this short clip from the address, and I'll be back. You know, with the help of PBS and CPB and our corporate underwriter, Bank of America, and others who've been involved, we do have a whole set of projects that are underway, 6 other films that are in some stage of readiness. The Roosevelts that I've been talking about, a history, biography of Jackie Robinson, a history of cancer called The Emperor of All Maladies, a history of the Vietnam War. Right now I have a crew in Hanoi. Lynn Novick and Sarah Botstein are there, and doing a 3rd trip that we've made to Vietnam. We're already 6-7 months into editing. I'm as excited about that film as anything. We're also shooting this week in Nashville. We've done 14 interviews this past week in Nashville, which were just terrific, on a history of country music. That will be out, and we've already done a few interviews on a history biography of Ernest Hemingway. I mention these because they're all big and ambitious projects, but I think there's something that sticks out that's a hallmark of what we do here, just as we've made a promise and a commitment with the American Graduate Program to say that we can make a difference, and we are making a difference in the level of the dropout rates, that we understand that what we do on the air is only one component of what we are able to do. And this is where I am both challenging you but reminding you of our great strength. I brought this project about the address to Bank of America, our corporate underwriter, and our friend there said, I love this program, it'll be great, but the bigger thing will be its programmatic aspects. Because I had said that I wanted to challenge everybody in the country to memorize the Gettysburg Address. And this is what we are uniquely equipped as a network to do. Most broadcast television is skywriting. The first breeze comes along and it's gone. We are not. Today is a school day in America, and I am told that the Civil War is being shown, part of it, 2,500 times today for a 24-year-old film. That's not bad. That's not a salute to me. That's a salute to all of you. So here we have an opportunity to think a little bit outside the box, to go into our communities, to go to our schools, to go to our churches, to go to our educational institutions. Call your governor. If you get through and you want that governor to speak to me, I will promise you I will get on the phone to that governor, and let's make this a top-down and a bottom-up effort to get everyone to memorize and publicly recite the Gettysburg Address. If we can move the dime on these graduation rates, if these kids who suffer from these incredible learning differences can do it, then all of us can do it, and we can prove our worth and flex our muscle and live out the true meaning of the creed that we accepted for ourselves when we decided to be part of public broadcasting. And I can prove this to you. As we were working on the editing of it, I just said, well, first we should get all school kids to do it. And then it was like, let's get everybody to memorize this Gettysburg Address. My friend, Pat Harrison, memorized it and broke down crying doing it. My friend, Sharon Rockefeller, has done it. There are many people in this room have already gone to learntheaddress.org and seen the number of celebrities who've done it. But there's also, if you'll scroll down, lots of so-called ordinary people who have done it. School kids in Alabama and Utah and Hawaii. People all around the U.S. soccer team. The ESPN anchors have just all recorded it, and we're about to put it together. What I'd like to show you now is an example of the force multiplier. This was less than 3 weeks of effort to get what I'm about to show you, to just tell you a little bit about the power that we have. Sometimes we do spend a lot of time justifying our existence or defending ourselves that we are tired, or when we do succeed, we want to declare victory, but we don't have to. We just keep going forward, and that would be the sign of the leadership. And then I think we're incredibly poised to take over the world. Please watch just the first of what we call the mashups that we have for the address. 3 weeks. I'm working on 7 films at once. That's what we got in 3 weeks' time. Nobody said no. They did the recordings themselves in almost every case. And that's what we can do. And it doesn't have to be boldface names. That's just the lost leader. That's what brings us in. Now let's go down to the grassroots and show what we can do. Thank you very much.
The wonderful Ken Burns. Thank you, Ken. Thank you. Wow. We're so glad we know you and you love us. And I want to thank Senator Collins and each of you here today for ensuring truly that public media is always focused on that next hill, never resting on our laurels, always committed to serving the American people in ways that are relevant to their lives. Now, we have something going on here, and I don't know what it is, Deb, but would you please come up? Deb Sanchez, Senior Vice President for Education and Children's Content. What is it you want to say?
So, well, I was sitting next to Jack Gelman. She's like, you're going on stage? And I said, yeah, just for a minute. He said, after Ken Burns? And I said, yeah. And I was like, oh, God, after Ken Burns. But I have a secret weapon. Our dear friends at Sesame Workshop found out about this opportunity to be part of the history of talking about the Gettysburg Address in a way that's most appropriate for our youngest viewers. So I want to show you a clip. The full address is also available on learntheaddress.org, but just a quick clip to show you what our friends at Sesame Street put together. We want to thank Mel Ming, Bobby English, who's here from Sesame Workshop, obviously Joan Gans-Cooney, who took her time to do that with the Muppets, for making that part of this story. So thank you.
And I want to thank Deb for her leadership on American Graduate.
Thanks.
Wouldn't happen without you. Thank you all for coming.
I want to thank my dear friend Pat Harrison for putting on such a wonderful show here for us. I mean, this was just fantastic. Just fantastic. I want to thank our former colleague at the Association of Public Television Stations, Deb Sanchez, for her new life and her new important work. And well done, Deb. We're very proud of you. And I want to pay some particular attention to my old friend, Ken Burns, who has just done so much for this system and for our country in so many ways over so many years. I mean, I just can't thank you enough. What a national treasure this man is. Thank you so much.